next. It
It's
will
the
turn
mind mask.
180
It's
degrees.
a
Yeah.
filter. And I think that so long as people are filtering their thoughts through that slab, they're all going to be on the same sheet, the world stage, and that's their parameters. And like you said, you try to show somebody something that's outside of it, they'll likely resist it. Uh, Again, they live. He had to fight to get the guy to wear the glasses that would let him see through the deception. It was a physical fight, and that theme is also in the movie Free Guy, where this NPC in this simulation wakes up and he tries to wake up his friends and they want to stick with the program. And I see the program as the approved scripts. Like the official story of 9/11, yeah, that's in the textbooks. If you don't go with that, you're not going to get an A.
At the same time, there's an increasing population that sees through it, and so they got to make a moral decision, and that's where the moral cowardice comes in. They know that they're being lied to and they're being ripped off. Something like NASA, they know that millions is being stolen and used for these dog and pony shows that NASA runs. How can they live with that? How can they live with themselves? How can they have any self respect? They can't. They can't. They send their children into these public school systems where they're going to be really sexualized and everything else. These people can't have any self respect. They're already degraded. That's the low point to which we've sunk. Anyway, I should get off and let somebody else
Well, hey,
call
I
in.
appreciate the call very much. We covered a lot of
I am lobbying. I am pushing for you to interview to see if Owen Benjamin, just a brief interview where he can explain this this paradigm about how um, the cast of thousands, the cast of millions involved in a massive psychological operation like NASA reflects a fractal geometry because it's a great way to model this.
I'd
Where
be interested because not everybody's in the know. It would not work if everybody knew everything. It's got to be
right,
compartmentalized. But then we have this area where people are LARPing, and there's a question of how cognizant are they of their role in it. Yeah, very interesting, and I'd like to hear other people's ideas on it. And I also would like to hear his deconstruction of the "if you build it, they will come" Mandela effect. He went down,
ah,
fell for it, and deconstructed it. And I think that's a valuable exercise. I really do.
yeah, he may have some useful insights, so it would be worth it. Maybe he's not interested. I don't know. All you can do is reach out and say, hey, I'd like you to just lay out your model for this, how we can understand it, how we can interpret it, and make sense out of it. That might be useful and
Very good.
instructive.
Well, thanks for the call. And tomorrow's Infinite Plane Saturday. The world's expected to end by many people because of Simpsons episodes, etc. And
Is tomorrow the 24th? Is
yep,
tomorrow the 24th?
that's
Okay,
correct.
well, we'll see what happens.
And then the
Take
25th
care.
is CSA Day from the DHS. Take care. Have a great night.
I'll be watching.
All right. Excellent call as usual. Miguel 2010 says slab eyed means drunk as fuck in England. Slab eyed. Well, I like the term slab. We're talking about the monolith, the phone, and the monolith, the one stone, the slate, the page that we're all on. The television is the replacement Bible for the de facto world state church, which is in fact the MSM. And the television has been supplanted by the handheld device, and it's just even more of a Bible than before. It's getting increasingly curated. It looks like you have more options, like more choices, but it's actually more filtered, more controlled as we go along. And my point tonight, really, about a lot of this stuff, I think, has been that the world stage is a thing. Off world stage wasn't really supposed to be a thing, but a few of us did go too far to the fringe, and we avoided, or rather ignored, their desperate cries for us to come back where it's safe, and instead we just continued pressing on because we figured out that the fringe is actually the cutting edge, and has been this entire time. We've gone further out past what they call borderline content than they would have liked. We've witnessed all of the book burning, and we've continued to republish our books, re-upload our content. I mean, this channel has been suppressed more than 140 times on YouTube, for example. And moreover, I think if we look at all of the other platforms. It's been a consistent thing. But we keep on reconstituting. If we had played by the rules, because they actually tell you the first time you get kicked off YouTube, they say you're not allowed to access our site anymore. And if we played by the rules, we would have blinked out of existence a long time ago. And we are the only truly post media or off world stage media organization out there. And we're really just getting started. If you go to Infinite Plane Society.com or Infinite Plane Media, you'll find we have the Institute, which is one of our newest departments here. We have a few things going on for us. You have the Infinite Plane Radio, which you're listening to here. Infinite Plane Society's the cult, obviously. But we have the Institute for Advanced Media Deconstruction. Right now we have Auto Hoaxology 101. More courses will be available shortly. I'm going deep into many different aspects of the Psywar. Things that many of us know, we've taken for granted. Other people don't know that nobody died, nobody cried. But to me, this is really about logic. And the first logical failure that people make, they've been taught to make, is shifting the burden of proof. It shouldn't be on you to prove media lies. But they've shifted the burden of proof into your hands, and you got to give it back. You're either a believer or a knower, and this is one of the core concepts here. Are you someone who automatically believes or gives a benefit of the doubt to the media? Or do you start with the presumption that it's fake until proven real if it's fakeable and there's an obvious agenda attached to you believing it? What we have here at the Institute, advanced courses covering mind war inoculation. You might be anti-vax, but I recommend this. Mind war inoculation. Media literacy, psyop deconstruction, metascript analysis. And these courses will be concise, informative. Each will have a glossary at the end. And I have an audio version of each course which I read. The first one is deepfaked. Well, no, actually, the first one is Auto Hoaxology 101. I'm working on deepfaked. But if you want to take any of these courses, again, this is the IPS Institute. You can find the link at infiniteplanesociety.com. It's on the homepage. I'll put a link in the chat. Just one of the many projects we have going on. And the reason for this is that this is put into a context that it's obviously and clearly, unequivocally for educational purposes. On YouTube, they'll say, oh, you're political. We're going to delete you. This is different. Anyway, this course is open to all members of any of the sites. I generally send the same course materials. And at the end of it, at the end of the first semester, I guess you could say, I'm taking all of the PDFs, all of the notes, all of the glossaries, and we're having it published into a textbook. So again, joining upside down. Show me a live stream with the buildings upside down and zoom in on the people walking round. The people walking round upside down. You got a balloon, I got a balloon. Boats reappear with zoom, they reappear with zoom. The horizon line is flat, center sky it looks the same through the lens of my senses. At peace upon the plane. All right, it's 9/29, 2022, 11:30 a.m. This is Chief Crow on the Flat Earther's Where's the Curve? It's not on the ground. Maybe on the ground. It's just not on the horizon. You know, if you think about it, you look out at the ocean, you see the flat horizon, left and right as far as you can see, and you look straight ahead and you see boats going over the horizon, or at least that's how it looks. Well, if you accept that, then your world's a barrel. It's a cylinder. You have to really think about this notion of boats going over the horizon, that was misinformation you were given when you were young. Apparently, they were also told, I guess we were all told, that the moon doesn't rotate. I had a caller, a true believer in the globe thing, the other day, and he said that the moon that we have is the only moon in the solar system that doesn't spin. Like he was educating me on this, and I'm like, well, no, it does. I don't believe it does, but you do, because the ball paradigm requires that the moon spins every 27 days. It's just so synchronized with the Earth that you don't notice it. It's it's one of these uh, little bits of mental gymnastics that it requires to accept some of these things. But people accept things with very little evidence. In fact, they're very easy to impress. Just the other day, there was a world-killing rock from space heading down our way, and NASA shot it with a dart. I guess it was like a refrigerator-sized munition, this dart that hit the thing. And I'm like, okay, this is bad Photoshop. No one's going to believe this. And they bring out the crew from NASA with all their blue polo shirts, and they all hug and high five each other. They act like it's the end scene from the movie Armageddon. The drama's not there. They didn't really. They were phoning it in. And then you had the one of the heads of NASA, one of the head Chicken Littles, is like, this could literally save us. One of these rocks killed the dinosaurs. Like they were trying to dramatize it, and honestly, it didn't really. It didn't do anything for me. I was just surprised that people didn't reject it. They just believe it, like they believed in the space sausage, and they will never get over it. If you ask me, the believers in the outer space mythos, this new heaven they've given us, they jumped the shark when they fell for the trick played on them by someone who operated the $10 billion telescope. And again, I said you should get a refund on it, but you can't because it's a million miles away. So you spent 10 billion bucks on something a million miles away, and they give you a picture of a piece of sausage to make a mockery out of how you will believe anything that they show you. And yet you will continue to pay. The only people who didn't fall for it were the flat earthers, which should tell you something. By the way, I opened up a YouTube channel. I had to go through my sock drawers because they had terminated all the other ones, and I found one with just under 500 subs. So many of the people showing up here in chat will have thought that the Infinite Plane Radio was down for months. But no, that channel was down. And more will be opening here very soon. We're a couple days away. And I'll say thanks again to all of you who support me on Patreon and on the Infinite Plane Society site and the shop and everything, because that's going to manifest next month. You will see where all of your support is going. We're going to go ahead and spread back out onto 25 platforms as we were before. And we're consolidating. We have like 140 now in the new Blue Wrench Lodge. Echo says, heaven is like the best deli, count me in. Yeah, it's the meatverse that I've always been talking about. Metaverse versus the meatverse. It seemed like a joke. I mean, who's the joke on, though? And that's really my question. Like, did the guy who put the space sausage up there actually think it was a funny joke, but space is real? Or did he think that, or is he an insider, and he knows that the $10 billion didn't actually go to a satellite a million miles away? I mean, don't you think we could use that money down here on Earth? What good do they do for us? I saw a picture of Hurricane Ian from the ISS, and it's like, what did you tell us that we didn't know from the ground? You didn't give us any kind of a warning. Supposedly you're circling around the ball every 93 minutes. You could have said, hey, leave. There was not a warning from space that was any better from the warnings on the ground. They really offer nothing. I'm talking about the useless and overpriced space jalopy with special effects from like the I'd say 2010s. I mean, really, the special effects need to be updated. And they go through permutations and iterations so fast. And this was pointed out by Douglas Trumbull, the special effects guru for Kubrick on 2001: A Space Odyssey. And he was pointing out that their special effects, their cinematography, their work was based on props, on miniatures, on models, on physical, tangible objects in the universe. Just real stuff, presented in a certain way to make it look like it was, larger than it was. But his point was, their old films look good today. They look convincing. Whereas the CGI looks good for a minute, but then a couple years later, it looks pretty bad compared to what they just had. And I actually think that, and I was in film studies and I got out of it, I was kind of disappointed at the low quality CGI. It just seemed like low budget meant you could just use pixel graphics for special effects. I thought it was kind of weak. I didn't think ahead that eventually it's going to catch up. But I don't think it wasn't. I don't think it was just about saving money. I think the idea that you would go to CGI effects, sure, it's easier in many ways, but you lose a lot, like what Douglas Trumbull was remarking on. Aesthetically, you lose a lot. But I think there's been a concerted effort to do away with real because they don't want people to have the ability to tell the difference. They want to remove the basis for comparison. I've been watching a show on Netflix called Love and Robots, and whenever they show the characters based on real people, it usually takes me a second to realize, okay, that was fake. This is fake. It's that good. Must be real because it looks so fake. It doesn't even look fake. All right, we're joined here by Peace Circle, Echo, Jenna Lovecraft Reeves, Advanced Settings, Copaesthetic, Rocco Calzone, AJ206, Steuben, AAAA, G-Funk, HIG, thanks for joining, Cubstar. Okay, lots of 737, lots have showed up despite the fact that we've been, a little suppressed lately. I mean, they have taken down a couple of our main channels. It doesn't bother me at all, but what I do is I take a moment. If they take off a significant channel, I'll take a day off and assess. I don't want to do the same thing every time if it fails in the same way. We have to be adaptable. And the biggest leap we've made so far was moving from, going from rotating chat rooms, like the think tank was always moving to a different channel, and now we centralized it on our own dedicated Discord server, which saves everything, which is very valuable. We had this one troll who's been openly saying, I'm flagging your videos for spam. And that's why I lost 3 channels for, quote, spam. Spam and hate speech. Apparently I'm spamming hate speech. Well, the troll who did it went by several different names, but since we store everything centrally, I was able to search the different names of the persons making threats to have the channel shut down and find, what kind of patterns, what kind of similarities are there. And you can often dox somebody or find out who someone is just by the little idiosyncrasies, the nuances. For example, the one who goes by Reno is always bragging about her IQ. Says it's a her. Says she's 18 and a female. Well, there's another troll that stalked us for years who also bragged about his IQ and also pretended to be an 18-year-old female. I think it's that dude. I mean, I can't prove it yet, but they give themselves away. That's why I don't ignore the trolls. I feed the trolls. Not that I like them, but when they're well fed, they're slow. They think they control the situation, and they tend to give stuff away and they get sloppy. And even having said this, they will not be able to resist the troll bait that we put out there. G-Funk says, why hate on the truth? Exactly. Why hate on free speech? Fascism. And it's not a coincidence. The mask over the face, when I saw the mask over the face before they implemented it here, I said, this is emblematic of the incoming censorship. Cover your mouth. Stop the flow of information. And I've been finding a lot of interesting development along these lines. In fact, there's a guy named, I think it's Denver Duggins or something. I'll find him. Someone from the J6 committee who's been talking about the role of QAnon in radicalizing people in government. And he was referring to Ginny Thomas, wife of Justice Clarence Thomas, and said that she caught a digital virus that radicalized her into Q, that she was infected. So now you can be infected with the Q. And I did say this a couple years ago that they're going to go into your house, the blue helmets from the UN, and they're going to take the Qs and the question marks off your keyboards. If you're looking at the screen, that's a troll over which I superimposed a penguin. I've been doing a lot of new digital art based on, trolls. Well, this is the Trollquin. And also I've been doing a new series of Penguinati, which you'll see just on the different websites. Just a heads up. Another reason to subscribe to the newsletter. I make it a point to include artwork in the emails. Okay, let's go ahead and go through some of the headlines. There's so much going on today. Marjorie Taylor Greene getting divorced after 27 years. And I don't think this is a coincidence, considering her recent run-ins with Alex Stein. I'm kind of guessing the two of them are going to get together. I think it might be she's trying to beat AOC to the punch. So I'm not a psychic, but I'm making a prediction. Marjorie Taylor Greene and Alex Stein will probably be getting married close to, I don't know. I'm thinking as we get closer to the midterms. Russia warning of catastrophic nuclear strikes. Nothing's happened yet. All this week we're talking about, or last week we're talking about the nuclear tsunamis to hit the west coast, and now you look how nature just upstages anything the media can possibly try to do. In fact, there was the storms were cited as a reason for delaying the launch of the Artemis rocket. Let's see what we have here. Now, this is interesting too. This is why I think that MTG is going to go after Stein. Stop the Steal organizer, Ollie Alexander. Now, why isn't this guy in jail? I don't understand why this guy's not in jail. Same with Alex Jones. Look, I don't know if you guys are going to like this or not, but I'm just going to start calling Alex Jones a traitor until he admits that he knows, because he's admitted, until he reveals what he's withholding. Alex Jones knows who Q is, and he won't tell. He'll tell Eddie Bravo. He and Joe Rogan will over steak dinner, but they're not going to tell us. So until Alex Jones admits to the world or reveals who Q is, he's a traitor. Anyway, here's Ollie Alexander trying to recruit Alex Stein to launch a primary campaign against GOP rep Dan Crenshaw. And this could be, I think this is even feasible. In fact, Ollie said he would work for free if Stein decides to run, that he would work for Stein and get him elected.
I want Alex Stein to run against Dan Crenshaw.
That would be incredible.
That's a race, and that's a race where I would volunteer my services. I would go live down in the woodlands and work for him for free if it's putting out signs, knocking doors, or doing
Alex, listen to him. If you see this video, Alex, do what he says. That would be epic for America.
And the good news is I know some donors that are looking to put money into 2024 challenging him. So I met Alex in Nebraska a few weeks ago, and I told him, I said, you should run against him. He's like, you think? You think?
So there you have it. Alex Stein, he has the staff, he has the money. He could potentially run against Crenshaw, on his way to win MTG's heart, if they haven't already. Like, I'm guessing, but look, I said back in January, and I can prove this in Discord, in mid-January, I said after Alex Stein's very first performance at a city council meeting, I said, you're going to see this guy face to face with Tucker Carlson. You can see he's been almost like he's being groomed for it. And I was vindicated. And again, I'm just saying, it seems like it's probably going to happen. Russell Brand, who has the number 33 tattooed on his hand, like Marilyn Manson does, Russell Brand finally realized that YouTube is mainstream media. He came out and he said it. YouTube is mainstream media. It's like, welcome to the club 5 years late, Russell Brand. But he gets a pass because back on his wall here, and I zoomed in, he has a copy of The Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly P. Hall, one of the, I'd say, foremost Masonic historians. So whatever you think about Russell Brand, he is probably, I'm not going to say he's, out of the suspicion of being a possible NWO shill, but this is more than just surface knowledge here. When you get into The Secret Teachings of All Ages, it shows you, I think, much of how our entire worldview is scripted. It's all this astro-theological cult. In fact, that book has a very interesting chapter on sacrifices, which I might have to go reread. Again, this Manly P. Hall, Masonic lecturer, historian. Joined here by Pete Trippa, says 1 month off. That seems weird. Need to catch up. I have that in mind with this new project I'm working on. There's a few things I'm developing, and I'm kicking it off next month once our war chest is refilled. I'm going to be releasing a daily podcast, 5-minute brief, which I'll be using, one, to catch people up on the news for the last 24 hours and let people know what we're going to be talking about that night. And then two, that will be, I think, sort of like NPR. On the top right, it's a constantly updated news feed. It'll be something I can use if I want to take breaks, which will make it easier for me if I want to do longer live streams, 2 hours, 3 hours, to have something to intersperse. Because not everyone can be tuned in 24/7. They give us 48 hours of news media to consume every 24 hours, knowing that it's too much for you to swallow. So you have them. That's why most people just line up and they have big MSM mother bird chewing up, pre-masticating their food and spitting it into their little beaks because they can't do it for themselves. They need it to be broken up into little chunks, pre-digested. Well, we don't have to deal with that because there's enough of us here to parse the news, to see what's real, what's fake, and to keep abreast of things. And I'll tell you what, though, in terms of our breakdown of the Metascript, we have been 100% on point. I think there might be a connection between what William Shatner said when he said there's going to be a catastrophic event last October. There's a correlation, I think, between that and this warning from the U.S. that Russia will experience catastrophic consequences. Seems like a code word. Going through my notes. Okay, yeah, look, there's a mass hopium epidemic on both sides, which we can probably get into, the Great Reset versus the Great Awakening. And it's the same exact thing. But the radicals on the right are kind of what I've been focusing on because back in March, I said, we're going to see the right wing parallel to what we saw in 2020 when the lefties ran wild. And that was predicted in the Joker movie, played by, the Joker, Joaquin Phoenix. That movie had the masked communist uprising burning down the system and jumping on cars, which is pretty much what the libs did that summer. When the Batman movie, again, Batman and Joker are part of the same Masonic dialectic. They represent the twin poles, the Boaz, Jacob, Batman, Joker. It's all Masonic, it's all encoded. And of course, the symbol of the bat as the phoenix, the bat as the catalyst for the pandemic and the reset, the bat soup. Yeah, this has all been encoded and foreshadowed. When the new Batman movie was coming out, I said, hey, look, this is likely going to foreshadow a right-wing uprising. And at the time, I didn't understand how it was going to look. It's hard for me to imagine a bunch of MAGAs running around kicking over trash cans and burning things. Like, they don't really do that, and that wouldn't make sense. Then I thought, well, maybe it's going to be, like the Proud Boys. Well, now you have emerging the Patriot Front, and they really made, I think, their first appearance when they came out of the U-Haul. The 33 of them, admitted informants, according to one of the cops there, they came out of the U-Haul van on 6/11. I think that was the face of the first expression of this Patriot Front group, where we were able to see what I believe is the right-wing Antifa. Same template, masked, anonymous, only they're men only. They don't let women in, the Patriot Front. Now, the Patriot Front, I've been doing a little digging, and there's a couple of interesting things about them. Their founder is some guy named Rousseau, Thomas Rousseau. And I thought, that's got to be a world stage name, because the French Revolution, of course, was inspired by the ideas of Rousseau. And we're talking about a revolutionary group, and the founder having the same name. I'm finding that to be a little world stagey. And of course, these are groups that are used to pin the blame on whatever they do on the right wing in general. Just like anybody on the right now is being blamed for some QAnoner killing his family, shooting his daughter. Probably a fake story, but people believe it because they read it on Reddit. Restless Bear says, Weather Channel told people to put helmets on. I did see that, which might be standard. It actually probably is smart, but part of the zeitgeist, I think, is conditioning us to fear the sky, ramp up the space junk, and eventually people will be walking around with helmets. I think at one point it's going to be, maybe soon, like before 2030, it'll be considered rude to not bring your own air supply. Like BYOB, bring your own air supply. Now here's a new development. We have Giorgia Meloni being Italy's first woman prime minister. And then in outer space, you have an Italian woman taking command of the International Space Station. And this would be the ESA astronaut Cristoforetti, the first European woman commander of the ISS. The pattern here, of course, is the first female Italian, above and below, as above, so below. What does this mean? Could mean, I'm not sure exactly what yet, but I kind of would correlate this with what I've seen on Netflix and HBO and Amazon movies where every single show has a strong woman taking over. Every single one of them. Even the one about the space station, the one called the 100, where it's called the Ark, and the space station falls, season 1, episode 13. But that one is also about women in charge. And I think this is all predictive programming to get us ready for Kamala. In fact, there was one I watched on HBO called DMZ, Demilitarized Zone, and the main character reminded me of Kamala. Kamala visits DMZ amid tension over North Korean missile launch. And the show DMZ is about a post-Civil War America. It's a television series. A civil war breaks out in America and Manhattan becomes a demilitarized zone. And in this one, of course, it's very interesting. It shows you, it's pretty obvious what it's really about. It's kind of this communist utopian thing where America gets put in its place. It's probably worth watching, but I think it's foreshadowing. Going through some comments, joined by Heidi Belanger says, happy to catch a live. Yeah, hey, we're going to try to maintain a consistent schedule. We've just had a few little bumps here and there, but we're also working on a whole lot of things behind the scenes. Little short civics lesson on a meme here. Who can name the 3 branches of government? Corporations, pedophiles, and the media. Eventually they're going to ban memes altogether. They'll say that's not factually correct. They don't like jokes. They don't like memes because memes convey ideas that are easy to write off as a mere joke. Art is a good way to couch ideas that mean something, which is why there's always so much control over the arts. That's why every single music video you see out there is slathered with satanic symbols. Why do you think that is? It's because they have monolithic control over everything, culturally speaking. Now listen to this. This is PM Jacinda Ardern, Prime Minister Ding Dong, calls the internet weapon a weapon. The internet's this is interesting, her wording here, a weapon of war. Your free speech is a weapon of war.
This week we launched an initiative alongside companies and nonprofits to help improve research and understanding of how a person's online experiences are curated by automated processes. This will also be important in understanding more about mis- and disinformation online, a challenge that we must, as leaders, address. Sadly, I think it's easy to dismiss this problem as one in the margins. I can certainly understand the desire to leave it to someone else. As leaders, we're rightly concerned that even the most light-touch approaches to disinformation could be misinterpreted as being hostile to the values of free speech that we value so highly.
They value so highly. This is, again, after Brenton Tarrant was used as an excuse to curtail everyone's ability to live stream. They're constantly creating these situations where one person's action can be blamed on an entire group. And the war has always been on the individual. That's really what we're looking at, the individual super spreader, the individual carrier of a meme they don't like. You carry a virus, you carry a meme, they make no distinction. And I'll get to the clip where that J6 guy is talking about Ginny Thomas having a, quote, digital virus infecting her mind.
But while I cannot tell you today what the answer is to this challenge, I can say with complete certainty that we cannot ignore it. To do so poses an equal threat to the norms we all value. After all, how do you successfully end a war if people are led to believe the reason for its existence is not only legal but noble? How do you tackle climate change if people do not believe it exists?
How do you tackle climate change if people don't believe it exists? Right. Set yourself on fire on a tennis court. Glue yourself to priceless artwork. Play in the freeways. That's what they normally do. Now, I'm in favor of most of the above. Like, if you are an eco-terrorist, eco-fascist, please go ahead, get yourself arrested. The sooner you do, the sooner you minimize your carbon footprint. The sooner you cease being a climate hypocrite and a climate criminal. The guy who set himself on fire on the tennis court survived because, while he was protesting private jets in the UK, and he survived because he didn't use the right accelerant. He should have used jet fuel, but he was probably worried about his outgoing impact on the environment. Okay, let us continue. Ukrainians forced to vote at gunpoint in fake referendums, breaking points with Crystal and Cigar. This video has a picture. There's a very famous face on the screen here. It's this crisis actress who just resurfaces every few months, but she showed up again. We're keeping up with the crisis actors, but they're recycling everything. They're so green, they recycle their crisis actors. I remember saying that the unicorn killer, Einhart, the guy who created the Earth Day, I remember saying that he was extremely green, having composted his girlfriend in the back of his car or in a trunk. And I thought that was just a joke. But now, as of 2027, you can start composting your dead loved ones in California. Coolio dead at 2022, rapper killed by internet death hoax. Yeah, this is a strange one. Earlier in the week, his name showed up and it said, internet rumor, victim of a death hoax. This is one of these viral celebrity death hoaxes. They happen all the time. Anyway, this preceded the actual death, or supposed death. I mean, when it comes to world stagers at a certain level, I don't know who owns or controls them or writes their stories, but I have no reason to think that their exit points are random. Generally, I don't. I don't have any inside information on that one. I haven't done any breakdowns on it. But for example, when DMX supposedly died, that was definitely coinciding with Easter, and the trending memes that entire weekend were both relevant to Jesus and DMX, and you got the idea this was a coordinated ritual. I mean, there's a lot of these celebrities I think are just used as conduits for the world state to not just pump out propaganda, but also as ritual props. And I say ritual because everything's very culty. It really is, and the symbolism is undeniable. There's no mistaking the resemblance between the Great Awakening and the Great Reset. You're saying there's a difference between the far left and the far right? Like it's an oversimplification to say they're just the same thing, because they're kind of not. The people on the left are way less in touch with reality. That's just a fact. It's the unconstrained versus the constrained vision. But despite that, the right has also fallen prey to utopianism. And the idea of the Great Awakening and the Great Reset both entail universal basic incomes. They just call them different things. They both entail something of a revolution, getting rid of the other side or phasing out their ways. But these are competing visions that leave us in the same exact place. I think this is, again, narrative and counter-narrative. I don't think one is better than the other. I think the Great Awakening and the Great Reset are both part of this transition into the New Age anyway. The Great Work, as the Masons call it. The Greta Reset, which is the easiest way to describe it. And I say this because what Greta proposed, what she represents, is what this New Age is about. It's the Green World Order. Like those environmentalists setting themselves on fire in public, like the guy who did it on the tennis court, yeah, those are saints. Those guys are martyrs. We're to admire that. They're protesting the conditions of an inhumane system that's destroying the world and disproportionately affects the poor. I mean, this is all their script writing. Do you remember back in January, like the 9th, on the 19th story Bronx building fire? Yeah, this fire in the Bronx started by space heaters. And you know who they blamed? They blamed Republicans. They blamed people who don't believe in climate change. Your unwillingness to believe in climate change has angered the globe, and now it's made it so cold through climate chaos that the poor are forced to use space heaters because the rich have destroyed the environment. So the rich made the weather go bad. The poor suffer the effects. They buy cheap space heaters, and those burn down their buildings. I love their reasoning. After the San Bernardino mass shooting at a Christmas party by Islamic terrorists, Bill Nye the Science Guy came out and he said, no, that was caused by Americans who don't believe in climate change. I'm like, what? Yeah, if you don't believe in climate change, you cause on the other side of the world, you cause their farmlands to dry up. They move to the cities, but there's no jobs there because of war. And why is there war? Because of oil. and the oil is the cause of the climate change. So it's this vicious circle, and those would-be farmers are now resentful against the West, so they come to America and they kill us, but it's our fault. Or it's your fault if you're on the right and you don't believe in climate change. I think they said that misinformation is the number one cause of death. That's from the FDA. And the disinformation. No. Misinformation is the number one cause of death. Climate change is the number two cause of death. So you don't believe in climate change because of misinformation. Maybe you don't take the news seriously when they tell you to evacuate or something. Like, they're finding ways to pin every single death on their political opponents, just like they did in 2020. Aide to California state attorney accused of running an occult police force claiming to be 3,000 years old. BusinessInsider.com. This is from a few years ago. Little background on Kamala Harris. One of California Attorney General Kamala Harris's staffers was arrested and accused of operating a rogue police force that claimed that it existed for more than 3,000 years. Suspicions about the Masonic Fraternal Police Department, whose members trace their origins to the Knights Templar, were aroused when various police chiefs in Southern California received a letter that announced a new leadership for the group. A leaked letter. Following an investigation, officials said sheriffs and investigators searched 2 sites in Santa Clarita and found badges and weapons and uniforms and law enforcement paraphernalia. Detectives conducted an investigation with several other agencies and determined that the Masonic Fraternal Police Department was not legitimate. Or so they say. The Times called attention to their website that represented it, and the police state is widely respected and operates in 33 states. So it's in 33 states. And we're talking about a fraternal organization that claims to be operational throughout the world. The first police department was created by the Knights Templar back in 1100 BC, the site says. When asked about the difference between the Masonic fraternal police departments and other police departments, we were here first, they say. Now, one point about this. The Knights Templar went underground in 1312. That's when they were totally a secret society, and they cropped back up as the Masons in 1717. You can find the symbolic links between the police and the Masons, the color blue. Very easy to discern. But during 2020, I noticed the protesters against the police were spray painting 1312 everywhere. I'm like, why are these protesters spray painting a year, 1312? That's very significant to the Templars. And I considered, well, maybe it's because the police are controlled by the Templars. Maybe this is some kind of, because I assume these protesters are all controlled by the same puppeteers on both sides. The protests, the counter-protests. So 1312 to them might mean all cops are bastards, ACAB. But I think it has a double meaning. I think it means we're in control. We control both sides. They look like they're protesting against us, but they're actually putting our slogans out there. Plus, it's part of the black and the white, the dialectic. That's why I mentioned the Batman and the Joker. It's all about they control both sides. And it is true that the Proud Boys were started by a Fed. It is also true that the Patriot Front is likely just the same. I mean, we're looking at controlled opposition. That's why I'm only advocating inactivism. I don't believe it makes sense to line up behind any group. Echo says the DMZ will be Times Square. Yep, could be. Someone here says that climate change is also making kids fat. Have they also blamed it? See, I think it was the lockdowns. It gave them all the COVID-19, 19 pounds. And I think that's all very intentional as well. Stay out of the sun, be sedentary, and then blame everything on the people who don't wear the masks or the anti-vaxxers. It's hypochondria. There is a mind virus out there. There's a few mind viruses. I actually concur that to an extent, Q is indeed a mind virus. But so is the C19. I mean, there are so many mind viruses. Climate change? Yeah, that's one. We live in a global doomsday cult. NASA is nothing but a bunch of Chicken Littles all day long. We're going to get hit, we're going to be hurt, somebody's going to come down and kill us all, like all the movies. And then they ritually enact something. Like this rocket here, we're going to break it, and they explain it. Look, we just saved your lives. Like, I kind of don't think you did. I think you're taking way too much credit for what you actually did. Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene's husband, 27 years, filed for divorce, according to documents. Again, there's speculation. Is she going to go after Alex Stein? Sharks on the highways in Florida. I saw Sharknado was trending. And a couple years ago, they had the Firenados. And there was a movie out called Geostorm about how the space station was controlling the weather and there was a computer virus and somehow it went out of control. And now you had these fire tornadoes. And when that movie came out, we had real firenados throughout California. And now I think I've seen Sharknado 1, 2, and 3. I mean, is that predictive programming? Other news, we have the Nord Stream gas pipeline breaking. We'll see what happens with that. You know, one minute it's a provocation, the next minute it's an accident. We'll see. It's like they make this stuff up as they go sometimes. I know there's a bigger script, but they must have some flexibility. And Joe Biden, I don't believe that the guy is senile. It's too perfect. He's talking about something and he brings up Jackie. He's like, where's Jackie? Where's Jackie? Referencing the person who died in a car wreck a month before. And I'm just thinking, okay, this is made for TV. This is made for TV dementia. It's meant to be believable. And I think it's part of an operation. I think the operation is, like the agenda is, let us bring this guy down in front of everybody and make a big show about the inadequacy of our form of government. And I think it also comforts the left. I think they like the idea that they have somebody controllable, not an autocrat like Trump. Okay, let me go ahead and get a clip here from the shameless Don Lemon, who's taking the hardships being suffered by the people in Florida as an opportunity to blame his political opponents for the weather.
Can you tell us what this is and what effect climate change has on this phenomenon?
Well, we can come back and talk about climate change at a later time. I want to focus on the here and now. We think the rapid intensification is probably almost done. There could be a little bit more intensification as it's still over the warm waters of the eastern Gulf of Mexico, but I don't think we're going to get any more rapid intensification. If you look here, you can actually see, pretty interesting for your viewers, you can actually see a second eye wall forming around the inner eye wall, and that's basically the second eye wall has overtaken the original eye wall, and that should arrest development.
So listen, I'm just trying to get that. You said you want to talk about climate change, but what effect does climate change have on this phenomenon that is happening now? Because it seems these storms are intensifying. That's the question here.
I don't think you can link climate change to any one event.
Okay.
Yeah, so of course he has to bring up climate change. And behind this individual on the right, you see the dove symbol. The dove, and it says NOAA. That's National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. Dove is the symbol of Noah from Noah's Bible. They've reinvented the flood. Carbon footprint, wickedness, same thing. This is a flood myth that the atheists will believe in. They've literally stolen this from the Old Testament. Thanks to DIA88 and Nicotromus. Appreciate the support very much. Someone purchased the Brainy Penguin NFT. Again, if you go to timosman.win or the link below, that's where we are financing this media operation, our think tank, through NFTs and artworks. And there's going to be a lot more of the art cards to look forward to. If you don't know what those are, they're basically baseball card-sized works of art. They're put into the plastic sleeves, kind of like Pokemons, but they're original. And just because they're smaller doesn't mean they're worth less than large canvases. And I used to sell art cards exclusively just on eBay. And I think it's a good way to support artists, support this channel. Other people on the Discord server are also involved in this. and it doesn't take up a lot of space from the perspective of a collector. Kind of like NFTs, you have them in your wallet, but these are actually tangible. And I'm kind of bridging the gap where many of these art cards that I'm putting out there will have an attached NFT, because if you put it on a public ledger on a blockchain, you can have it listed on sites like Amazon later, which is something I'm working towards. This is a tweet from Michael Savage, who says that Obama killed Netflix, and according to some writers, every show has to have someone who looks like Michelle or Barry. Doesn't matter what the movie's about, but they're trying to get, apparently they have that kind of creative control, according to Michael Savage. I'll look into that. Michael Savage is an interesting one. You have a lot of very talented communicators, pundits, and entertaining people, but it's fascinating to observe them from the off-world stage perspective, and you can see what blinkers them. Like in his case, he's definitely, from what I recall, his whole thing was, about borders, a huge thing about borders. And one of the reasons he believed we needed borders was because the unvaccinated immigrants could get in. So he's kind of an outlier in the sense of being a self-proclaimed epidemiologist and hyper pro-vax. But the vax border thing is a very interesting concept as well. I talk about the division politically that they've created, and I think it's notable that the pro-vax side, the ones that are pro-mandatory vax, the ones that are like really for it, yeah, they also believe not only should your skin be porous to the government, but your borders should not exist. They're the open borders crowd. Open borders, open skin. What's the difference? And then on the other side, the ones who believe in self-defense with the gun also believe in strong borders, and it's that side of the fence where you find the anti-vaxxers. So they believe in border integrity for the nation, for their homes, that is with the guns, and then for their bodies with their skin. So one side is open borders in every way imaginable, and the other side is closed borders in every way imaginable. And that's what I think that they created here. It's a perfect dichotomy, and it's not meant to be reconciled. That's why I say it's guns versus needles. And it's pretty evident when you look at the marches. I was looking at the Roe v. Wade, which was all triggered. That's all just a psyop. They had the exact same thing. I mean, this is just a repeated story. Roe v. Wade, starting with a leak 50 years before, everything's been repeated here. But the agenda was, you get the right-wingers agitated that Biden's going to take their guns. We're going to regulate your guns. You get the lefties agitated that the right wing's going to regulate their wombs. So it's the guns and the wombs. Now this is representative of the male-female schism as well, as it relates to the left and the right paradigm. Guns and wombs. It's not hard to understand how Freudian this is. And also I want to bring up again that the founder of Netflix, first CEO, was a blood or is a blood relative of not only Edward Bernays, but also Sigmund Freud. I mean, what are the odds? Of course, Netflix's founder being related to Edward Bernays says a lot anyway, because Edward Bernays pretty much invented the, public relations, the father of public relations. His great uncle, this is again the Netflix CEO, Mr. Randolph. His great uncle is Edward Bernays, a nephew of Sigmund Freud. That's the part that I find interesting, because Sigmund Freud is where you would get all the unconscious, subliminal attacks. That's where they would figure out how to really get the messages past your conscious filter. And that's why they go for very primal fears. For example, you're going to grab your guns, going to grab your wombs. Like, what do you think they're doing? Very primal fears. I'm going to play a clip here from CGI Joe warning you to get your vax before you head out for the hurricane.
Where hurricanes often strike, like Florida or the Gulf Coast or into Texas, a vital part of preparing for hurricane season is to get vaccinated now. Everything is more complicated if you're not vaccinated and a hurricane or a natural disaster hits. Let me be clear.
All right. Okay, here's the picture. How many more times is this woman going to get injured? And this was actually posted by Ian Cheong at Still Gray on Twitter. Very large accounts. This isn't fringe anymore. auto hoaxing, calling out the fake news, it's not exactly only on the fringe, but not everyone has the full interpretation of what this actually means. Many will happily say, oh, they're faking stuff. The left fakes things. And the left, they'll say the right fakes things. But they're both right. Here you have the woman with the bloody cheesecloth and the bloody face. Great actress. And I think her daughter was actually a model. They looked into her. And she was showing up at so many different scenes back in February. And then here's another picture of her, a more recent one. Different injury. Better bandaging, actually. Much better. This looks far more professional than just wrapping her head in cheesecloth. She got better help this time. And I guess this is what they did to her when they forced her to vote at gunpoint. Looks like Wayne L. Sexton has some competition. I believe Sexton was spotted at least 4 or 5 different events. She died, I think she died or she was injured in Vegas. She lost a son in Orlando. She lost a son at Thousand Oaks. I've seen her as a crazy, psychotic, liberal professor protesting against Milo Yiannopoulos. And she showed up as, of course, George Floyd's teacher, who saved his drawing of himself as a judge. And on that picture is a Liberty Bell that's cracked. All very symbolic and occult when you get down to it. January 6th hearing was postponed due to inbound Hurricane Ian. And of course, the noner said it was the, quote, storm. Did anybody think that the asteroid being hit by the dart looked real? I saw nothing but skepticism from my end, but I'm pretty sure most people now feel they can rest a little easier. Like, okay, I don't have to worry about space rocks now. Battery 79 says, Michael Savage's son founded Rockstar Energy Drinks and sold it to Quaker Oats and made billions. I didn't know he sold it, but I remember looking at the Rockstar drink. And let me point this out, because people often point out how let me see if I can find it. Yeah, the Monster drink has the 666 on it. It says Unleash the Beast, has the upside down cross, uses the word MILF on the back. Horrible influence. Bad for your mind, bad for your body. I mean, this has been explained by a number of alarmists experiencing a little bit of that satanic panic. But I remember looking at the Rockstar, and if you turn their star upside down, it does look like a Baphomet. Like, that's hard to deny. The 2 R's when upside down give you the goat horns. But try to find me some corporate logo that isn't blatantly satanic. That'd be the harder thing. It's actually easier to decode them. Just grab them at random and you'll see it, instead of trying to find the one outlier. Jackie Jack says subconscious, not unconscious. Yeah, thank you for the correction. Subconscious. And that's what we're discussing here with the Freudian, the occulting of everything. And the idea here is that you're recognizing this on some level, that it does influence you, even if you're not consciously aware of it. Like, I think the constant drumming of the sky is going to fall, rocks from the sky, climate change, nukes, ICBM, they have a myriad of different ways they can terrorize you with the sky. And that constant repetition, I think it might have an impact. I think they're trying to train us to become more agoraphobic and scared, maybe raise our baseline anxiety. And I think this might be something that's very effective to us on a subconscious level. Like, I look at my dog whenever it gets cloudy out and it's going to rain. He's my weatherman. If he's shaking and quivering in the corner, it's guaranteed to rain. And because on a very deep level, he understands, yes, it's terrifying when it's stormy out and you get soaked and wet in the lightning and the thunder. And I think that maybe in a similar way, we have a sort of a respect and a dread of the sky that's just maybe programmed, it's just instinctual. And they tap at these, again, primal fears. We're joined by Wayne L. Sexton, says live. Yep. Thanks for joining. Again, Wayne L. Sexton has competition, not the most prolific crisis actress out there anymore. Battery 79 says, what's the deal with liquid death water? Who would buy something like that? Yeah, that's kind of an interesting question. Like, what are they doing? Getting you to acquiesce to the idea that it's cool to drink, this. I mean, it's probably not a coincidence it came out in 2020. Here's a cover of The Economist, and these are always predictive. It has a big bear stalking Little Red Riding Hood throughout the, looks like just a barren, snowy wasteland. Europe's coming winter peril. More dark winter. And we've been getting a lot of that. And I happen to think that all of the dark winter predictive programming specifically pertains to nuclear winter. I don't think it's just the cold weather. It's not climate change. I think it's nuclear winter. All right, let's move on. I want to find this clip where it was this individual from the J6 committee talking about how Gina Thomas caught a mind virus. Okay, I know, I uploaded it onto infiniteplane.media. I have to play this clip because they're making a really strong case here that you can catch a virus digitally and become a carrier, and it radicalizes you. In other words, it infects your thoughts. It overrides your ability to think for yourself. Denver Riggleman warns of conspiracy theory-born digital viruses infecting the GOP. Digital virus that metastasized in the GOP. It's an infection. I'm going to play this clip.
And this now unaffiliated ex-congressman had a skill set that caught the attention of the January 6th committee. He joined the staff in August of last year. Riggleman's data team was first to identify a telephone number in Meadows' texts belonging to Ginny Thomas, wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Thomas texted links.
This is from 60 Minutes. And what they're explaining here is that Ginny Thomas was sharing a lot of the Q posts that were and postings that said that they're going to round up all the Democrats and put them onto barges and then execute them in Guantanamo. And she's saying, I hope this is true. And again, the fact that she's the wife of Clarence Thomas raises some eyebrows because it shows you, look how high up this Q virus has moved.
Tied to QAnon, including this one, saying the Biden crime family and ballot fraud co-conspirators are being arrested and detained and will be living in barges off Guantanamo Bay to face military tribunals for sedition. She added, I hope this is true. What did you think of those Ginny Thomas texts?
Actually, as far as academically, it was...
I hope this is true, though. Like, do you hope this is true? We've been talking about hopium. There's a mass hopium epidemic, almost as bad as the fentanyl. So you got hopium. You've got something else, this desire for an end. They hope for the end. I used to call it doom hope. And I think that's what we're seeing with the QAnoners, because you're hoping for something. But when you say hope, people generally mean you're thinking something nice, not let's execute a bunch of people and film it and put it on TV and take over. And that's what I would call doom hope. By the way, there's a message on the screen from Nicotromus. He says, fix my name on the Discord. Is that from... I'll fix it. If you want your name changed in the Discord server, just at me, and I can update your names. And also, if you say hi in the Discord server, I will give you a blue wrench. I recommend, if you go in the 24/7 chat server, turn off notifications, because we get chats all day long. And you can just drop in at any time. And there's always people in there. All right, let me go ahead and continue. This is Denver Riggleman. He's with the January 6th committee, describing the digital virus that has taken over.
Hellaciously insightful.
Insightful in what way?
Insightful about how the conspiracy theories and sort of this digital virus had really metastasized in the GOP.
You make it sound like an infection.
Now, do viruses metastasize, or is that something cancers do? Like, they use this language very loosely, but they're trying to make it very clear that not only do thought crimes exist, but they're diagnosable, that you can isolate them. You can find these thought crimes, find these carriers, and presumably waterboarded out of them. I mean, how do they get rid of these mind viruses? And I remember speculating about how the internet is never going to be shut down because they shut off the programming. But what they could do is they could conduct a quarantine similar to what we experienced in 2020, but on the internet. And I think that's the objective. I think we're seeing a holy war. We're seeing the codification of a new Bible, like the Council of Nicaea. They're getting rid of all of the Apocrypha, all of the heresy. They're consolidating a worldview, and they're getting through the final stages of that purification process. And they need to get the public acclimated to discussing this as though it were, in fact, a physical infection in the body politic.
In the GOP.
You make it sound like an infection.
It is an infection. But Ginny Thomas specifically, to see somebody like that who has that type of access to the president and married to a Supreme Court justice pushing that type of nonsense to the chief of staff to the president, that should be an eye-opener for everybody.
All right, there you have it. Problem, reaction, solution. They're introducing us to this new problem. They're using Alex Jones as a battering ram against the First Amendment. Nothing new there. The question is, how complicit are these various media personalities in what looks to be the controlled demolition of our First Amendment? I mean, it's already been destroyed culturally, where you have people who are targeting channels like this so they can censor it. Why would they want to censor it? Because they don't like it, which means they want to deny the freedom of others to like it. They do not want others to have the freedom to form their own opinions. And that's shameful. And to the trolls out there, the ones who've made themselves known lately, like Reno and Cookie, you should be ashamed of yourselves. You're very anti-American. In fact, the guy Cookie was saying that I need to be in jail for what I'm saying. And I think that you need to be in jail because you're a traitor. You should be in Guantanamo, to be quite honest. I mean, if you think about it, what we're looking at here is the real insurrection. And it's not against this fake government, world stage, WWE, never-ending reality TV show business for ugly people. The real insurrection is against the individual, freedom of conscience, the ability to conscientiously object from the Psywar. Like, I don't want to participate in this BS. I don't believe in that BS, but I have to tithe. I don't believe in angry flood gods, but I got to pay because of my carbon footprint, which they designate as a new form of sin. I don't believe in your religion, but I got to put on your face hijab. I don't believe in your concept of sin as you've described it and how it's spread from saved to the unsaved. So I don't need to constantly douse myself in holy water hand sanitizer. But again, you don't have a choice. They don't give you the opt-out. But sadly, people capitulate to it. And it's not like Big Brother is coming down here with jackbooted thugs to stop my channel. No, it's a bunch of snowflakes who've been weaponized. Weaponized snowflakes. Whatever happened to you, I may not agree with what you have to say, but I'll defend your right to say it. And in a perfect system, if you didn't like something, you would change the channel. You would censor it for yourself. You wouldn't say, I can't have anybody else watching this. Because what they do is they shrink the universe of ideas. You have the borderline content, which is the edge of the known world, like the edge, the fringe of acceptable discourse. Those ideas are all automatically bad because they're fringe. So you have to let those go. You push them off the edge. We can no longer think these thoughts. Now we're safe. Not anymore. Now there's a new fringe. Now it's just closer. And of course the fringe gets smaller and smaller as fewer ideas are acceptable. And that's where we're at. We're whittling down everything to be suitable for the NWO monoculture, which will be very much like the movie Equilibrium. Very monotonous. Very monotonous. Equilibrium is the one with Christian Bale, in which emotion is essentially deemed illegal, and anything that inspires emotion, because it leads to war, leads to climate change, leads to problems, they decided, yeah, let's go ahead and ban anything, and they keep everybody at an equilibrium. They have to ban the art. That's kind of what we're at. This is probably the last time I bring up Marjorie Taylor Greene today. The shoes that she's wearing, walking down the stairs on the left, look exactly like the shoes of the Mad Bomber from the 1-6. And I think this is a closer match than the Marjorie Taylor Greene look-alike on American Idol. I mean, she might have been both. American Idol contestant and Mad Bomber. Battery 79 says, white hats in politics and government is a hoax. Never had any good guys here. I agree with that. White hats are the 33rd degree. And they wear the white hats and the black hats. They control both sides. Deep state is a hoax. All state is deep state. You telling me that there's a shallow state that's really good? Yeah, I'm going to go for the not deep state. I don't think so. The plane says, is it me or do the vehicles and missiles look inflatable? They are inflatable, if not made out of wood. It's common knowledge now, no longer a conspiracy theory. This has been publicized enough. The militaries of the world use decoys. Both sides do. Ukraine, yeah, they have wooden surface-to-air missile launchers that look real from a distance, and they say, oh, it's because we're tricking the Russians. Like you're reading about it in the paper. Oh yeah, our military's putting up these fake things because it's wasting their missiles. Oh really? They're launching these multi-million-dollar munitions, and they're not checking their targets. No, they're probably launching balloons. I mean, my point is, it's fake on both ends. But it's real to the public. And that's what I mean. The war is not really this side against that side. It's the elite against the individuals, including the people who are participating on the sides. Nobody knows there's a puppet master or a man behind the curtain. And the cognitive dissonance is staggering. I mean, look how many pictures you can find of Donald Trump hanging out, very familiar with, very comfortable with Ghislaine Maxwell. Like they're all buddies and friends. He rides on Lolita Express. He hangs out with all the same sickos. But we're supposed to believe he's the good guy. I guess so. The hopium is so bad. Now, I don't think that it's right to use the terminology of this is a virus, these ideas are viruses, etc. I don't think it's right. I think it's a malappropriation of medical terminology, and I think it has a bad agenda attached to it. But I will say that QAnon has given the First Amendment AIDS. It's destroyed its protections, and that's been intentional. And now with Ginny Thomas having been infected with QAnon, yeah, there's no hope. There's going to have to be more laws and rules to govern what they call misinformation. AJ says, Tim, I'm obsessed with your penguin art. What are they holding? Are they wrenches? Or maybe tuning forks? They certainly look like weapons. All of the above. All of the above. The wrench originated in the YouTube chat rooms. We used the wrench, which is the avatar given to the moderators. Everyone was moderated once they were vetted. In the original format, you had to email me to get a wrench. We built up a cadre of wrench-wielding penguins, and this kept all the trolls out, and we had a pretty clean think tank. Very productive night after night. So we adopted this as a symbol of, one, order. So yeah, it's a weapon. But two, it's a symbol of deconstruction because we're taking apart mass media myths. So it's not even a destructive tool like a hammer necessarily, but it's more about the careful and artful deconstruction. I mean, we can take it apart, put it back together. It's not blunt force. Now, it could also be a tuning fork. It could also be some kind of electro-pulse weapon. I mean, I've seen various ways that these things are used, but for the most part, the wrench is a symbol of order out of their chaos. We're not just calling things fake for no reason. We're discerning between fake and real and noting the difference because they don't. They blend the two together on purpose. And the more we distinguish between the real and the fake and we make these distinctions clear and we can call them out, the more we separate. Not into an antagonistic stance, but into a parallel. That's why I say what we're doing here is it's the creation of a parallel media where we are objectively observing the world stage as such. And this isn't something you can do on any other platform because they're all compromised. They're all on the world stage and they accept most of its basic assumptions. I mean, if your starting point is we're on a spinning ball falling through a vast, infinite gulf of blackness and there's no point to anything, we're just intellectually superior animals. But there's no meaning to anything. No coincidences mean anything. There's no higher power, and everything just goes dark eventually. We're just an accident. The mind is a byproduct of the wetware in the skull. If you're one of those moral relativists and nothing means anything, you have a completely different frame of reference than someone who maybe perceives that there is a higher order, and the elite that control the media know it and encode it into everything. So we're here recognizing patterns. Patterns, I mean, that's a huge blind spot if you ask me. The public's taught not to recognize patterns, that it's a conspiracy theory, and it's all gaslighting. It's a conspiracy theory that we're experiencing a great awakening, that there's some kind of a massive shift for humanity. That was a conspiracy theory in the summer of 2020. But then, about December of 2020, as we got close to the Saturn and Jupiter conjunction, they bring out Darth Schwab from the WEF 666 to say, "Welcome to the Great Awakening. We're going to build back better." No coincidences there. It was specifically timed to go along with the great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn on the winter solstice, which symbolized year zero of the new age, because the last time we had that conjunction on that night was 2,000 years ago or so, when Jesus was born. This is from May 13th, 2020. Our new religion. Government is the church. Globe is the God construct. COVID-19 is the devil. Carbon pollution is sin. Infection is possession. Hand sanitizer is holy water. Scientists are your priests. The nurses are your nuns. Tracer agents are your inquisition. Social distancing, face coverings are puritanical religious customs. Anti-vaxxers are heretics. Conspiracy theorists are Protestants to the MSM Church. Space is the new heaven. Global warming is the wrath of God. Vaccination is salvation. Their God is the earth god Osiris, the god of recycling, eternal life, the original green god. And we're moving into this green world order. No coincidences. But I'm pointing out that they have templated our new age, our new reality, within a scientific framework. And we also saw how slick they were at reinventing radical Islam, but making it radical QAnonists, radical conspiracy theorists. The radical verses from the Quran that they were worried about after 9/11 are now the QAnon verses. These are one-for-one changes. They take the same template for the external threat and made it for the domestic violent extremist. These templates are important, I think, to understand how the world stage works. They need you to fear the sky. They need you to be afraid of a reset button, of a nuke. They need you to believe that at any moment the world could end. There are certain things they need you to accept for you to be sufficiently cowed. If you're totally fearless, well, they have a problem with that. You'll notice they definitely promote the conspiracy theorists that hype how scary the world is, but they ignore the ones who say it's all fake. Why is that? Because you take the fear out of it. Roger Stone pre-election footage. Now this is good. Now Roger Stone is either a victim of modern technology and deep fakery, deep fake libel. I mean, this is big. If Roger Stone isn't lying, this is big, because you have a video that just emerged where back in July of 2020 he was talking about F the voting, let's get right to the violence. He talked about shooting Antifas. This is in 2020. Before the election. And even before the election, and CNN has the footage, he was already talking about stopping the steal. Like, this was already part of the agenda. Now listen to this. Here he is in a car talking about violence and the need to start shooting Antifas, but he claims this is fake. I'm going to play the clip, and then of course we can judge as to whether or not this is, quote, deep fake. How convenient, though. I think it's very, in fact, I have this on my TikTok. It might load faster than TMZ. How convenient that something really bad emerges, and now you can scapegoat, oh, that's fake. And you actually could make the case that it could be fake. Okay, here it is. Roger Stone, deep fake clip. Again, if you want to follow me on TikTok, it's Infinite Plane Media. I use TikTok for all these clips, so I don't have to constantly send traffic to world stager platforms. Okay, this is Roger Stone talking about the need to go shoot Antifas. And again, this is, according to him, this is fake.
For a Trump ally the night before the election, just hours
Okay, this clip was from right the night before.
before millions of Americans would go to the polls. Listen to what he says about voting.
Excellent. the violence. The voting. Let's get right to the violence.
Let's get right to it.
Shoot to kill. See an Antifa? Shoot to kill. Come. Done with this bullshit. Shoot to kill. See an Antifa? Shoot to kill. Come. Done with this bullshit.
Okay, shoot to kill. See an Antifa. Shoot to kill. F 'em. Done with this bullshit. This is what he said is deep fake. It sounds like he's in the back of a car with a number of other individuals. I think I hear Alex Jones there. But this is the guy that was, he's associated with Nixon. And in all the videos, he's always posing with a picture of Nixon. He's got a Nixon tramp stamp on his back.
Antifa, shoot to kill.
His presence around Trump in 2015, 2016 had me calling out Trump's going to go down like Nixon. And now you have this parallel between Watergate and the 1-6 thing. And they've made these parallels very strong. Again, what is that, a deep fake? Echo says, you got Roger Stone selling his name and likeness to the Queen. He did a cameo. That wasn't a deep fake. He claims he didn't remember it. But he did a cameo where you send Roger Stone $130. I could do it now. We could send him some money. And he'll say, listen to Infinite Plane Radio. I support everything he does. And then later, if I were to raise money off that and crop off the cameo.com and represent him as like representing me, endorsing me, yeah, he could have a problem with that and sue. Like he ought to sue the Queen of Canada for doing that to him. Wayne L. Sexton says Roger Stone is a credible source for prayer. Didn't he close Satan's hole above the White House, the portal? Like Satan's portal. Let me play that up. Satan's portal. And this is Roger Stone. And look, this is why I started to question this guy. I'm like, this guy is 100% reading scripts all the time. He can't really mean this. Roger Stone says that they have to pray over the satanic portal. Here we go, above the White House. And this was on the eve of the 56th anniversary of the Church of Satan. They're like, there's a hole above the White House, it's glowing red, and if we don't pray, and then he even said that he was a prayer warrior this whole time. That politics was just I guess God just put him in politics so that he would eventually be in the right place at the right time to pray at the portal, the satanic demonic portal above the White House. He said, quote, it's swirling like a cauldron. Like if he's not being paid to say this, then he's lost it. I saw the image. It was a lens flare on the 24/7 cam outside the White House.
White House.
Okay, here's Roger Stone talking about the portal that's demonic.
Shortly after the election of Biden. And believe me, the Huffington Post and the rest of them, they have savagely attacked me for discussing this in public. But I conferred with Robin and I asked him, should I speak about this? The Lord is telling me to speak about this. And he assured me that's precisely what the Lord wanted me to do. And by the way, it's still there.
Is it still there? Because sometimes the camera doesn't show it.
Okay. I check on it every couple of days. By the way, you can zoom in on it, with a telescopic lens, and you see it's like a swirling cauldron. So it is still there, and prayer can
close the swirling cauldron.
In fact,
so you have to pray to close it. And yeah, he did say that his whole life has been reframed to be a portal closer.
Can close it. In fact, prayer is what we're. There is a demonic portal.
The Church of Satan actually responded to this on Twitter.
There is a demonic portal.
They said, quote, that is ridiculous. You think they wouldn't be naysaying. This would be a good recruitment tool. Yeah, the Church of Satan, 394,000. It's the real one. And it says, we mute lunatics and trolls. All right, let's move past Roger Stone. I'm mainly following up on Ginny Thomas today. That should be interesting. We're going to find out, what they're going to do with this idea that the GOP has a, quote, a digital virus. Yeah, prayer closing a portal to hell. That's what they have been up to. There's another Alex Jones episode with Sandy Hook. Kind of boring this time around. A lot of the same actors. I did watch part of it. I'm not convinced of any of it. They're trying to make it, of course, a thought crime to question the news. But they have the same issue with science. Oh, the science is settled. You can't question it. Or it's hate speech. The news is settled. You can't question it. What if you have new facts? This idea that news is carved in stone, we can't question it. We have to rely on the limited coverage that it gets. Elon Musk crops the credit out of a cartoon and steals it. Yeah, Elon Musk is a major meme thief here. It's got Mario and the princess saying, of course there's no way to prove we're living in a simulation. He took this meme, which was from futurism.com, he cropped off the credit, and he posted it as his own. Like he didn't want to share any of the credit for this meme, which shows that he's a meme thief. This is pretty bad. Sending people to Mars gulags under false pretenses, possibly shuffling them into some deep underground military base, after thoroughly brainwashing them and enslaving them, putting them into indentured servitude and worse, that's pretty bad too. But meme thievery from one of the richest men in the world, that's pretty weird. Goes on to say here, called out on the oversight, Musk was unapologetic. He said, quote, he can sue me for money if he wants, but that's kind of lame. If anything, this will increase his mug sales. In a certain light, Musk's meme theft makes sense. On a meta level, rich people often steal, even when they have no rational reason to do so. Musk has dealt with the accusation of lifting larger ideas as well, including the Tesla. That said, it's particularly weird and even a little sad that the richest guy on the planet feels like he has to pilfer some of the lowest hanging fruit of the meme world when he could hire the world's best content creators. Yeah, he paid somebody to simulate Mars ships, Mars probes, didn't he? I mean, what hasn't this guy paid to have simulated? It's pretty sad. And he's not apologetic about it. Elon Musk just stole one of our cartoons, LOL, Futurism, September 27th. Really, that says a lot about his character. I'm so disappointed in Elon Musk. I know he's a villain on the world stage, but I thought he was like kind of on our side in some sense. But I guess they wanted to have this meme lord in control. They want to make sure that somebody who's an authority on memes is someone that they control, and he's got to be. He's a Pentagon contractor. I mean, come on. Artemis 1 moon rocket's shelter catches fire. The Artemis rocket didn't launch because it was cracked. Multiple attempts, and now the shelter there at the Kennedy Space Center burned. Yep. No reported injuries. No problems added. But they don't think it's going to launch until November. YouTube says, G-Funk says all computer generated. Yeah, where do you draw the line? With Musk, I assume most of what he presents us as, quote, space travel from his end is CGI and faked. There's some evidence from my point of view that Grimes is fake. A total CGI construct, kind of like Simone. Did you all see that movie with Al Pacino? Sim 1 or Simone? It's about a man who creates a fake pop star, a totally believable synthetic actress. She succeeds, major singing career, and he can't get himself to admit to the public that she's fake. It's Al Pacino and Simone. It's from 2002. And I think it's an interesting question to ask. How deep faked is our reality? How many people that you grew up watching or seeing on the TV? How many of these politicians or actors were all fake from the very beginning? With the masks. Masks are not just used in Hollywood. So that you have been surrounded by deep fakes your entire life. There's no way you could know. Sometimes you can kind of catch little glitches. Like there's a pretty good conspiracy theory, rumor out there that Benicio del Toro does not exist, that he's a character portrayed by Brad Pitt. So Brad Pitt puts on a mask as this other identity and gets roles as that person. A role within a role. Blurring of real and fake. But what this one posits is that this could be done digitally. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, it could be, especially now, but I think that this idea of digital deepfakes is, for the most part, deflection or misdirection. So we don't pay attention to how deepfaked we already are, that they've already done it. High-tech disguise has done the job of what CGI is only beginning to be able to replace. The film shows how fake is produced using chroma key. This is just how they do the ISS. It tells you something about fakeability. Some people don't believe you could fake a space station. There are some people who don't believe that you have the directors capable of staging something like the moon landing. They think it'd be easier to go to the moon than fake a movie about it. But the public is pretty much reality impaired. And I remember I found this clip where Musk was talking about how we might live in a simulation, and I saw a smirk. I saw Duper's delight. And that told me, when he said we might be going into a simulation, that he already knows that we are in a simulation. The world stage is a sim. It's a LARP. It's a alternative reality game. The public lives in a doomsday cult. Its fringe members set themselves on fire to please their god. Marjorie Taylor Greene, I didn't want to mention her again, but this ties into something else because we're talking about the radicalization of the right. She's inviting someone, I guess a donor, to go on a hog hunt with her. But on this video, she makes it ambiguous. Is she talking about shooting hogs or shooting Democrats? MTG on Tuesday launched a competition to join her for hunting feral hogs in Texas. In a video shared on Facebook, the extremist lawmaker likened Democrats to wild animals that tear up farmers' crops. She says we have skyrocketing inflation, high diesel fuel, and Democrats. Anyway, she goes and kills a bunch of hogs from a helicopter, and I believe it says at the end, stop communism. But she's got a semi-automatic and a helicopter, and she's shooting these hogs on the ground. And this is very similar to what Kyle Rittenhouse released with his game. Kyle Rittenhouse releases a video game called Turkey Shoot, where you shoot media turkeys. Turkeys, hogs, I'm just pointing this out. It looks to me like they are kind of setting the stage again. I mean, this is just bad parody. And obviously it's goading and trolling the other side. But what about politics isn't just trolling? Miguel says, what is actually real? Well, reality. Like, I'm the least confused person. If you don't know what's real and fake, you're confused. And the people who believe everything they see on TV are confused and they don't know it. And they don't like people pointing out that they're confused or drawing attention to that confusion. When you point out discrepancies, when you draw attention to the confusion, they experience internal pain, cognitive dissonance. Yeah, it's emotional pain, it's mental pain. When they feel that, they recoil from it and they attack you for hurting them. When you tell somebody the truth and they're locked into a lie paradigm, yeah, you're their enemy. They have Stockholm syndrome and they will defend the lie. Sometimes people will make stuff up. I had someone, we were talking about the moon landings, and I said, you believe in them? He said, yes. And I said, well, you know the moon rocks are made out of petrified wood. And instead of questioning that, because it's a fact, the person said, well, probably because the astronauts wanted to impress some girls and they gave them the rocks and they had to switch them out. So there's a long story to explain how everybody in the world got tricked. And I'm saying, well, what's your evidence for this? If you have to make up stories to fill in the blanks, to make the lie make sense, then you're lying on behalf of the person who's lying to you. You're a gaslighter. You're an emotional abuser. And if you're lying to defend your abuser, you have Stockholm Syndrome. And I think most people have Stockholm Syndrome. All right, let's see. Going through the Twitter feed, people are pretty mad about MTG killing hogs. I'll play this clip. They're probably reading too much into it, but now you know that the next psyop could easily be pinned on her. I remember there was an advertisement where I believe it was Sarah Palin put crosshairs on Arizona, and a few days later, Gerald Loeffner shot Gabby Giffords, and they blamed her website. They blamed Sarah Palin for that shooting. Now I'm waiting for some shooting to be blamed on Marge Green.
We've got skyrocketing inflation, high diesel fuel, and Democrats' America Last policies. Democrats aren't the only one destroying farmers' ability to put food on the table. We've got wild hogs.
Now, wasn't she stalking David Hogg? She was armed even, and she's stalking him and calling him a crisis actor.
Destroying farmers' fields. So we decided to go hog hunting.
Yeah, this is really bad. Hog hunting. Given her animosity, like she was actually walking recently, like a couple weeks ago, and an anti-gun activist jumped in front of her and asked her a question and said, "How can you say the Second Amendment will stop deaths?" And Marge gave her a flat tire, stomped on her heel twice, kicked her on camera, assaulted someone. Here she is.
Let's help American farmers out. Sign up below and let's go in that helicopter.
So if you go to mtghoghunt.com, she'll pick you up in a helicopter and you can go, quote, hog hunting, whatever those are. Wayno says she's cringe, Marge Parker. I think she's entertaining. Who's the other one? Lauren Boebert. She's out there shooting a gun and she forgets to put the safety on and just drops the gun. I mean, yeah, it's such a good clown show. I don't really have any complaints here. Here's an excerpt from a conversation we had on Discord about the premise that everything is fake, because somebody had said, well, your basic premise is everything's fake. And I'm like, no, I actually totally reject that. My whole take on this is that we are looking at a war on real, that the MSM liars are superimposing fake over real. When you're in a religious cult, in a destructive doomsday cult, with projected doomsdays that never happen, if you're in one of those cults, you could say that you have a fake worldview superimposed on reality. And my contention is that reality is there. They're imposing fake. When I'm saying I'm not saying everything is fake. I'm saying fake is fake. Real is real. They're saying real is what we say, even if it's fake. So no, I don't ever say everything is fake. That's lazy, and it's just as bad as saying everything is real. But somewhere along the line, this big collective deception became very self-reinforcing. And this idea of like trusting the news is mostly tradition and habit, if you ask me. But here's one thing I won't do. A lot of people will say, you're pointing out all these patterns and coincidences, and they're undeniable, and they're hooked up to the stars, and this is some astrotheological cult. It's a big story based on the Bible. People can see it, and they'll say, there's no way man could do this. This has got to be the AI. This has got to be God. It's got to be the demiurge. Got to be the devil. People will not accept that human beings could be responsible for this mass deception, as intricate as it is. And I like to refer to Arthur C. Clarke's his axiom about any sufficiently developed technology will be indistinguishable from magic. Yeah, it may be in appearance. Smartphone looks magic, but I guarantee every single component has somebody making money off of it. Everything is traceable. It's not magic. But it looks that way if you don't think about it very deeply and don't deconstruct it. And the mass media looks real. It's a magic show. Magic shows look real, but we're deconstructing this mass magic show. And the issue I have with people who are ready to throw in the towel and say, no, we can't solve this, God's doing it, or the AI is doing it, whatever that means. When people say AI, they posit the existence of God without saying God, and they're not even describing what this thing is. But they're throwing in what you would call the divine fallacy. The divine fallacy, or God of the gaps, is the one where I don't know, so I'm going to ascribe it to a higher power. Okay, well, let's say you do that. 9/11, yeah, that was all done by our collective demons manifesting as some bad event in order to help us evolve. Like, you can come up with all kinds of explanations for why things happen in the world or why God's doing things. So the God construct or the matrix is doing this for our benefit or something. But whatever it is, when you defer to a higher or lower power or something supernatural, you're giving a pass to human criminals. The people who are faking the things, the PSYOP operatives, the mind war specialists, perception management, yeah, the wizards in high places, you're giving them a pass. And I'm sure they love it. Imagine being one of the perps of 9/11 and you're listening to people talking about it and they're saying, no, God must have done it. No way man could pull off a hoax like this. They must feel like gods. That's why you see so much duper's delight. They feel like gods and they feel superior because they're so tricky, the magicians on the world stage. Echo says, Tim, can you call John? Oh yeah, John the plumber. He's out there in Florida. Yeah, we'll check on him, and of course, I'm not sure exactly what part he's at, but yeah, hopefully he's vacated. Hopefully he's not in one of these shark-infested freeways. The timing of it, too. You know, I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, I don't know, is this going to interrupt their usual scheduled psyops? Really hard to compete with nature, with tangible evidence for things. But of course, as I predicted, they're going to always use these events to scapegoat their political opponents. Phones are open, 833-311-1984. I'm going to run through the headlines, and we'll likely be back this evening to take calls. This is a end of the month kind of recap on everything. A few of the wheels have fallen off the tank over the month, which happens. Sometimes I feel like we're doing repairs on the move. But that's just kind of how we have to roll here. And it's better than not rolling at all. You know, even if we're only on 5 platforms, we will build back better. U.S. agency adopts new space junk rules to reduce exploration risks. Now they're getting ready to shut down outer space. Watch as the ISS captures Hurricane Ian's landfall in Florida. Again, their God's eye view does nothing as far as giving you an advance warning. And what they're showing you is just a computer rendering. And it's on a movie screen with a scale model. It's 100% fake. I remember after 9/11, you had that Frank Kubertson, the only American in the ISS, claiming he saw 9/11 from space. Like he saw it happening. Give me a break. Black Mirror USA, political criticism of Biden regime labeled domestic terrorism, just like communist China. You'll know things are bad when they come into your house and they take the question marks off your keyboard. They will phase them out. Why would you need to ask questions? Asking a question, looking up, they say don't look up for a reason. The movie Don't Look Up was basically saying this. If you look up for yourself, you'll come across information that contradicts what you're told. And you will make the wrong decisions, and the world will die. And that's what happens in Don't Look Up. And as long as you have question marks on your keyboard, you might be inclined to use it. And why would you need to ask questions anyway, when all of the answers have been provided? Ex-CIA Putin cornered, chance of using nukes increasing. Again, he's been upstaged by Hurricane Ian. But I think it's still going to happen. I think the whole context is going to be nuclear winter, EMPs. They may They may black out the Northwest for a little while. Matt Drudge slams dementing Donald Trump for Ukraine war comments. Yeah, we'll look at this. There's a bit of beef coming up between Trump and DeSantis. Again, it's all WWE. The Trump as Antichrist narrative, though, continues to expand, and we'll dig into that. Ben Shapiro mocked for claiming the military has abandoned traditional masculinity. All of these pundits are so transparent these days. They're caricatures at this point. And they all believe in, well, the space sausage. And they all believe in everything they're told to believe in. It's just so insulated. Russian state TV tells viewers that nuclear war is very likely. At UN, Russia repeats it has no choice. Again, just reading the gist of it, the whole zeitgeist is basically saying what it's going to do in advance. Nuclear winter was definitely foreshadowed. Game of Thrones, Stranger Things. Winter is coming after the West burns. Westeros burns. Red Dragon, actually. Is it the Red Dragon? There's a dragon that burns Westeros. After which, you have the winter start. And it looks like nuclear winter.